Okay, so again, today I'm joined by Mark, and Mark is going to be talking to us about the recent Hiroshima G7 summit. And this is a follow-up to some of the videos that hopefully you've watched by now on our YouTube channel. So, yeah, welcome and thanks again for talking to us today, Mark.
I enjoy it.
Great. So just tell us, you know, what were some of your takeaways from the recent Hiroshima G7 meeting?
So previously we'd correctly predicted some of the main topics, and it was Ukraine, and of course President Zelensky came down to Hiroshima, which is, I think, that had quite an impact actually. Climate change, of course, since it was Hiroshima, nuclear weapons, and then maintaining the international order, which I think is a reference to Ukraine.
Right, yeah, I see.
However, I think I'd like to focus on the kind of the lesser topics. For example, regional affairs.
So I presume by regional affairs you're talking about the Asia Pacific.
Asia Pacific, very much so.
And what does that cover then?
Well, basically there were three main concerns. There was China, very extensively, but also North Korea and also Myanmar.
Right, well, North Korea, I guess, with the locale and the proliferation, nuclear and all that.
And the firing of missiles.
And Myanmar?
That's because there's a military dictatorship which is incredibly repressive.
Okay, so I think, as you said, China was one of the things that they really, went in depth on. So can you just talk us through some of the issues that was mentioned there?
So what really struck me was that there's a call for China to join international forums. They're obviously trying to bring China into like the international fold,
into the arena more.
Then there was exploring the need for economic resilience, and then of course Taiwan and the East and Southeast China Seas. That was a big topic. And finally, they did talk about Tibet, Xinjiang, and Hong Kong.
I see. Okay, interesting. So you mentioned they called for China to join international forums. In what way?
Well, really to tackle problems such as, climate and biodiversity crisis, debt sustainability, but also global health and macroeconomic stability. They really were trying to get China involved.
I see. And also you said about connecting China more to building economic resilience. What do you mean by that?
Well,
what is
economic resilience? So what was happening was, even though the communique was very clear, they didn't want to stymie China's economic development or harm it in any way. But at the same time, they felt that they have to diversify the supply chains.
Right.
So which I think it wasn't stated so explicitly, but I think that's a call for saying
on China.
Basically, I think that was it.
I see,
definitely.
I see. And of course, Taiwan, with its proximity to Japan, is something that was of grave concern. What was said about that issue?
Well, basically, there were lots of warnings about not changing the status quo, which basically means don't try and invade Taiwan. But also there was a call for China to follow the United Nations direction on on South China Sea and Southeast China Sea, where basically China's claiming lots of islands and lots of territory, or lots of sea territory, and the UN has ruled against that. So they wanted China to actually follow that.
Obviously, and Tibet, Xinjiang, and Hong Kong also mentioned.
So Tibet and Xinjiang were all about human rights. Basically. And then Hong Kong, it was just a call on China to abide by the joint declaration, which guaranteed Hong Kong more autonomy.
I see.
Which it obviously isn't really sticking to the letter.
At the moment, no. Okay. So you said earlier that there were a few surprising aspects of the issues covered. Can you just give us a few of those?
Sure. So I picked out three. I picked out health, digital, and gender.
Okay, right. So can you begin then by outlining some of the health issues that were?
I think there were two big takeaways. One was that they basically said that the G7, I guess other countries will cooperate in case of another pandemic or the spread of any infectious disease. They will come together and tackle it jointly.
Right.
So which is quite good, get some international work on that. The other one is that they said they were going to tackle the falling life expectancy.
Right.
And I hadn't realized this, but apparently this is the first time in 70 years that life expectancy is falling.
Wow, that's quite a change in trajectory there.
It's very changed, yep.
And then moving on to digital issues.
Well, the big concern here is the recognition that artificial intelligence, AI, is being developed kind of more quickly than expected.
Yes.
And so regulation is lagging behind.
Yeah, this is a hot topic, I think.
Very hot at the moment.
Yeah. And so what was then said about gender? What were some of the gender issues covered?
Well, there was the usual one saying, you know, women and girls should be fully involved in all aspects of society. However, for me, what was really surprising was that there was explicit recognition that this also applied to the LGBTQIA plus community.
Right.
And that LGBTG we know, but the QIA plus is really, it's extensive as it can get, and it's really
so inclusivity was something that was pushed here.
Yeah, and the G7 have really kind of they've nailed their colours to the mast, meaning they've made themselves really clear where they stand on these issues.
That's progressive in terms of
really
what the G7 is
very progressive.
Covering. Great. So then, Mark, from all that, just give me a kind of overall conclusion.
Overall, I think the really big takeaway was that they wanted reapproachment with China. Yeah. They want China to be included. They don't want China going off and
they don't want to isolate it.
They don't want to isolate it, and they don't want it forming kind of opposition groupings or things like that. They want to bring China in, make it a full member of the international community.
Yeah. Well, that's
very sensible.
Sensible is the word, I think. Yeah. So overall, do you think it was a positive,
very much so,
forum and
I think all the leaders were on the same page.
That's unlike some of the previous ones.
With
awkward characters.
When President Trump was president of the US, there was often some standoffs between him and the other leaders.
Yeah,
but
this ran smoothly.
Very smoothly. I've never known. And there weren't any anti-demonstrations. Occasionally there have been G7s met before. There have been demonstrations, but here there weren't. It was all very positive. Very calm, extremely positive. Lots of good. Good messages came out of it.
That's good. Well, let's hope it does bear some fruit. And
I mean, if anyone's interested, you can find the full text if you just go online. Yeah, basically,
it's worth probably checking out.
Just you put G7 communique or leaders communique, and that'll take you to a good website.
Great, excellent. Well, thanks again, Mark, for joining us today and talking us through all that. And we hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Thanks again, Mark.
Great. Thank you very much
for watching. Bye-bye now.